had like 400 computers in this huge building, and I did all these wall caps and all this stuff. And we worked like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Hey, before I
Verify this and then we'll be done.
Wednesday the 19th. So is that next week? Wednesday, yes. John Curtis is going to be in.
I need to check this morning, last week, 400, so we sold 2 houses.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our Iron County Commission meeting this Monday, the 10th day of March, 2025. We will begin the meeting with a prayer offered by Sam Woodall, and Commissioner Robinson will lead us in the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for another beautiful day, grateful for the moisture that was sent to us. Pray that that can continue as needed. We're grateful for now the opportunity to conduct our commission meeting. Pray that the Spirit will be with us, that we can feel a sense of accomplishment and the good work that we're trying to do, that we can communicate well with members of the community, and that all will be well today. This we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We're gonna, if it's okay with these other two commissioners, we talked about our Shakespeare Festival representatives, John D'Antonio and Michael Barr, are here early, and so we're gonna, if it's okay, we're gonna let them do their report during this meeting.
You guys overachieving.
Yeah, they're just. It's my dad always said if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. But you guys are taking it to a whole nother level. So, but we're happy to have you. So we'll go ahead and we've got minutes to approve of February 24th, 2025. Anybody have any comments or questions on the minutes? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and all in favor?
Aye. I'll go ahead and make a motion, move to approve the claims for payment from February 24th, 2025 to March 9th, 2025 while we're at it.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to pay the bills. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ken, you vote?
Yes, aye. Yeah, I did, sorry.
Okay, we're good. That's unanimous. So we'll begin with our reporting. We've got, which ones did you say weren't here, Mike? We got Park and Rec here.
Sheriff is out of town.
Sheriff is gone. And Shalon's here.
So actually, we've actually already corrected it, so,
We're good. Oh, you've already, okay.
yeah, we found out last week, so you could probably ask the Shakespeare fellows to,
Yeah, let's just go ahead and invite our Shakespeare Festival. They're going to give us kind of a review or preview of what they got going on, and this is John D'Antonio, my new neighbor. We're happy to have them in our neighborhood, and Michael Barr. So if you guys want to go ahead and report on what you got going, that'd be
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We appreciate adjusting the schedule. We are sorry that we are so early. We're very, very excited and gung-ho, too. So we were here last year, and I believe it's been a year and 4 months. Is that correct? So we call him our new artistic director, but he's been here a year and 4 months, and we've had a very, very great year. Some really, really exciting things that have happened over the past year. We just wanted to tell you what was coming up with this upcoming year, too. And it's important. We met with Cedar City. Well, we've been meeting with the Chamber. We've been meeting with City Council, all that type of stuff. We just want you to know that we are very, very much a part of Iron County, and we appreciate that relationship that we have. And this is a part of that. So John's going to explain basically the season that we've got coming up, and then we'll tell you some other things that are going on and some great collaborations that have happened, too, as well. So.
Hello, everyone. Just want to do a quick overview of our shows for this season. So we have 7 shows. I'll start in Shakespeare Land. So We start out with Shakespeare's great epic romance, As You Like It. We've got the beloved Macbeth this year, which will be the first show I get to direct at the festival. So I'm very elated and excited for that. And then the lesser-known Antony and Cleopatra, last performed in 2006, part of our Complete the Canon commitment, where we're doing those lesser-known works. Then in the Randall Theater, we've got 3 shows that are just absolutely hilarious. We'll be rolling in the aisles. We're bringing back a musical this year with A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. For anybody who doesn't know that, I'll give you the 2-sentence synopsis of that. So it won the Tony Award for Best Musical in 2014. It's about a young man who discovers that he's 8th in line to a great title and fortune, and he makes the very reasonable decision to knock off all those family members that stand in his way. And part of the fun is one actor plays all 8 of those family members. So it's an absolute hoot. Part farce, romance in there, and great music in that Gilbert and Sullivan sort of style. Then we have Robert Harling's wonderful, heartfelt Steel Magnolias, which we've never done at the festival, which I'm so excited about. And then Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, what many call the funniest play ever written. A great satire on Victorian society and whatnot, but another great love story as well. And we just announced a 7th show, which I'm really excited about. Ken Ludwig's Dear Jack, Dear Louise. This play is about, it's the true, Ken is like the king of comedy, but he's written this heartfelt, beautiful story, which is the true story of how his parents met. It's set during World War II. Jack Ludwig is a doctor for the military stationed in Oregon. He begins writing to aspiring actress Louise Rabiner in New York City. Sparks fly, they start hitting it off, but then Jack gets sent overseas to the front lines. They continue writing over the course of the war while that drama is happening, and everyone's feeling, the stress of that. But they keep falling deeper and deeper in love. Spoiler alert: it is the true story of his parents, so it does have a happy ending. But they eventually see each other for the very first time, VE Day in Times Square. An absolutely beautiful, beautiful story. You laugh, you cry. It's got great, it's very accessible for military and for our veterans and whatnot. So a really lovely show. So I'm really excited about that. That will be in our Ains Theater, which is that great 200-seat space, that really intimate space. And so, those are the shows. We've got our green shows back, 3 versions of that. Britannia Howell did an incredible job with those last year, and she's back to write and direct those again. And I just wanted to say, so, this isn't me in any way ever trying to sell y'all on the shows. It's me inviting you. You know what I mean? It takes a community. Y'all are the leaders of this community, and I know when people see you there, it says, oh, I got to be there. And I think your invitation also goes a long way. So I encourage you to invite those loved ones. And really, what are we talking about? Making memories. Bring your family, bring your friends, introduce them. So thank you for what you do.
Could you remind us of the local discounts that
Absolutely.
Shakespeare offers? Yeah.
Absolutely. That's just right on time,
Very
too.
good.
So we want to make that well done, well played.
Do that up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm grateful that you know that it is there. For a while, it was kind of a secret. In fact, I remember I've been with the organization for about 24 years, and it was, oh no, what will happen if our friends in Vegas and our friends in the Wasatch Front find out? It's no different than what happens at Disneyland or in Las Vegas. It actually helps sell our shows if you actually go and say, hey, you've got to see this. So, so there's the Iron County Pass, which is essentially you can get 6 plays for $200, and you can divide them out any way you want to, okay? And that's what most people do. They'll buy that 600, or did I say 600? Excuse me. They'll buy that 200, and then they'll spread it out
Much
over.
of a discount.
No, not much of a discount at all, right?
6 plays for 200 or 200.
Yeah, exactly. Sure helped our revenue.
Like that, reverse it.
So $200, and we see a lot of our neighbors doing that because then you're able to kind of sit wherever in the theater with that. But there's another one which is on the day of the play, you can get in for half price. So half price anywhere in the theater. And so when you figure our cheapest ticket is $24, so you can get in for $12.
Go to the movies for that.
No, and that's what we keep telling everybody. And what you're getting is this, Broadway level, regional, one of the, Tony Award-winning theater quality. And so, and I don't think it is a bit of a secret. We want everyone to know that there is a price point for you no matter where you are in this theater. Our board continues to encourage us to raise the prices. We will always keep always keep that entry point for Iron County in. And then there's two other discounts that you need to know about that, again, I don't think a lot of people know this. The Student Access Pass, if any of you have grandchildren or students or anybody who is going to school, this can be college, maybe you're working on your master's degree, for $40, you can go to as many plays as many times as you want. So at the beginning of the season, you pay $40, and we see it. At the end of the season, students will come up to me and they say, hey, look at the number of plays that I've seen. And so that's that next generation that we're trying to settle in. That's been around for a very long time. Some parents up north have discovered it too, and they'll pay full price, and then they'll bring their kids in and bring it in that way. So, so that's that Student Access Pass. So take advantage of that as well. We're very heartened by what's happening with ticket sales this year. We're actually seeing just a bit of an increase, and I think as we get closer to the season, when we did our Cyber Monday sale, it performed better than it did the year before, and that's an affirmation of the titles that we have out there. I mean, people are saying, ooh, we've got to get those titles. The number one seller right now is Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. Number two coming in is Importance of Being Earnest, and that's because of frequency that we do during the week, and then, of course, everybody's looking forward to Macbeth. If you didn't get a chance to see this guy on stage, he and his wife were in Taming of the Shrew this last year, and it was fabulous. And spoiler, you'll probably get a chance to see him this season too. We haven't announced those cast things yet, but we're looking forward to seeing them there too. So thank you for asking about that. Spread the word. We've had some really, really great conversations with the Lodging Association and with other stakeholders. Again, this is your theater. This is our theater. We are all doing this to do it. Friends and neighbors, we want to see everybody there. So thank you for moving it up. You're going to see us banging the drum and sharing and doing all that type of stuff. And we just appreciate the support that we get from Iron County and from the region. So thank you.
Before you finish up,
Yeah.
John, tell us your background and where you come from.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last decade, I've been in Colorado, running a theater called Creed Repertory Theater. This is located in southwest Colorado, in the San Juan Mountains, very remote and rural. To give you an idea, located at 9,000 feet elevation, an hour from the nearest Walmart, surrounded by 97% national forest. A very small town where in the winter, there's 400 people that live there, and the snow comes and it never leaves. But then in the summer, it's a huge tourist destination.
Silverton?
Sorry?
Silverton?
It's near Silverton. If you could fly, it's just right over the mountain range. But so yeah, if you got to Lake City and then started going through them, you could get to Silverton that way. So that neck of the woods. But yeah, it used to be an old mining town, silver mining back in the day, and then when all the mines were closing in the '60s. They said, hey, what if we turn that old opera house into a theater? And they wrote letters to all the universities in the Southwest. And some undergrads from University of Kansas said, we'll start you a theater. And so repertory theater has been the main economic driver for 60 years. And it's this great little tiny town, and it's one of those places where everyone in the town has played a part in building the theater at some point. Whether they literally were building it or doing the renovation in the 90s, or they were on the board, or they sponsor a show through their business, or they help, donates. Here's the key to the hardware shop if you need something late at night. So that's why I say I get that it takes a village. You know what I mean? And it's true for this place too. So that's where I've been the last 10 years. And yeah.
And your wife, remind me your wife's first name.
Yeah, Caitlin.
Caitlin.
Yeah.
And does she acts too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, she's a great.
See that in church. I mean, when she prays or talks, she's like acting. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She just got it in her blood.
Well, she's got this curly red hair. She's got this Lucille Ball energy, right? She kind of lights up a room. That's just that's who she is. Yeah, she's incredible, and you'll get to see her do her magic again this summer. So yeah, you definitely got to make it out.
They just live up the street from us, about 3 houses.
Yeah,
we're happy to have in our neighborhood.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you asked that question though, because we had a national search with some 98 plus candidates, and it was a who's who in American theater. We had a committee of 20 stakeholders from all over the place, with this selection process. He and his wife did his time in New York. You are correct. They met at the Denver Center.
Yeah.
And out of that crew, for us to select John, it was a coup. But what I love about it, and you guys are already, I saw the math going on in your heads here too. He gets this place and he gets that place. And what we really need to be successful here is someone who understands both those worlds, right? Both the world of professional theater and the world of actually connecting and going out and doing that type of stuff. So I'm sorry we stole him from Creed, but I'm not sorry that we have him here, because that balance of both of those worlds helps with that.
Well, you know, when you talk about Shakespeare, you probably knew Roger Jones
Oh, yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
Roger was an engineer. He was in the LDS Church. He was a patriarch for, I think, he was like for 50, 60 years. He was a patriarch. But I believe he had all the works of Shakespeare committed to memory. He would quote Shakespeare all the time. He was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's that is in the blood here.
And we lost him recently, which was sad. He was
Yeah.
a dear friend of ours.
I just came from a Shakespeare Theater conference on Friday and Saturday, full of a room of people. Utah's really unique that we have that love of, and it's not like that in other parts of the country, that we have that love of Shakespeare that is culturally kind of embedded here.
Right.
So when we bring, he's already done the work. We got a whole amazing crew of actors and technicians that are coming out here, and they come, what is this place? And then they find it, and then see the people here. It's true there. So anyway.
Well, we appreciate what you bring to this area in our community, and it's really good to have you in our neighborhood and our town. And
It's incredible to be here, and this community is amazing, and we're it's been a wonderful year and a half. Yeah, first year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the report.
Thanks all. Thanks for moving up.
You're good.
Hey, listen, that shortens our next meeting.
Well done.
Just always looking on the bright side.
Thank you all.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will go ahead and go to Maria, Parks and Rec, and Tourism.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's hard to follow the great Michael Barr. But I will try my best. We're going to start with Parks and Rec today. So things are going well at Parks and Rec. We've been very, very busy. Just to kind of bring up an issue that came up during the high school mountain bike race, the championship. We had a few neighbors who were kind of unhappy with us because the race start was blocking their driveway, and so and there was some damage to some property and some noise issues. So we're trying to work with them right now to kind of mitigate that. That race is far too important to us. We do not want to lose that race. There is a possibility that it will be coming back this year. And so we want to create an environment where we can have happy neighbors, but also facilitate the economic development of Three Peaks and the parks. And so I've been working with Bruce Anderson to pave the road a little further in to the park. The pavement on Mid Valley actually ends right at our park entrance. And the race start needs to actually be on pavement. And so, but then there's that road that kind of cross-sects there. I'm trying to remember, the 4600. And that's where the one driveway is that gets blocked. And so we're going to try and pave that road clear up into the disc golf course so that we can actually move the race in further and have that race start actually be inside the park, not outside the park. And so I just really want to say thank you to Bruce. He has been very, very supportive and helpful as we try to make this better for everyone. As part of your report, I included the economic impact of what happened at the last race. You'll see how many people were there. We had over 13,000 people in Three Peaks during that race period. So it does have quite an impact. Just lodging alone, it was over $880,000 in booked lodging in Iron County during that time frame. So it is important to what we're trying to accomplish. So again, thank you to Bruce and him and his team trying to help us make that better. So far, in terms of revenue, our revenue is up. We finished 2023 at $12,000, a little over $12,000, and then we'd finished 2024 a little over $15,000. And we attribute that to, we've actually placed a QR code out the campground and at Three Peaks to generate more revenue on site, and that has been, we feel like that's made quite a difference. As far as workloads are concerned, I mean, we've been busy. Some of the parks are closed, and during that time, like Woods Ranch and 5 Mile, we do burning with the State Forestry Fire Crew. We've been able to burn a couple of slash piles up at Wood Ranch. And we're just waiting to get to some at 5 Mile right now. We had a really great opening with 5 Mile this year. We were only open for a couple of months, but it helped us see how it's going to be and what kind of use it's going to have. And so we've moved our opening for this year to May 1st, and we'll run clear through October 31st. So we'll have a longer season. We'd like you to put this on your calendar, but on May 1st, we will do the actual grand opening of 5 Mile. This has been a project a long time in the making, and we would like you to be there. I haven't set a time yet, but I'll let you know as soon as possible, most likely around 1 o'clock.
What was the feedback on the 5 Mile opening? I mean, was
People who have discovered that it's open have enjoyed it. They wish, I think they wish that parts of it, the parts that they remember were open, which was like the old pavilion, some of that across the river. So we're working on that still, and hope to have that open in the future.
when is that? Because didn't we vote on a contract to redo that? Didn't Pendleton get that?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
where are they at on that?
It's close.
Is it? So
Yeah.
they are working on it.
They've finished their part.
They did. Okay.
So we have to finish our part. We need to put
I
some
see.
more tables and stuff in there. And trying to keep with that historic nature, we can't just go out and buy those. So, so we're constructing those right now. So Bryce and Peyton. But if you haven't been up, I mean, you can access it right now. I mean, the gate's closed, but you can drive right to it. But I'm going to say Bryce has done a really great job in making that park incredible. And Mike Worthen for getting a lot of the grant money to help us put in, all the things, the amenities that we've needed. As far as Three Peaks is concerned, if you haven't been out there, thanks to Mike Worthen, he was able to get us some money to build out an ATV trailhead. Bryce and Peyton have really done a good job of making that really nice. It's right there at the front of the park. You cannot miss it, but they put in the fence. We've had our jail crew there helping out. And it's looking really, really nice out there. So we're really pleased with what's happening with the parks. The problems that we were having with the shooting range and the airsoft range next to it, we're still working on that. We need to, again, move that boundary. We're trying to get that worked out. But we haven't had any issues, and I'm knocking on wood at this point, in regards to Ricochet over into that airsoft range since we've put out the pistols only signage. And so we're feeling pretty good about what's happening with that. Any questions regarding parks? If not, we'll go on to tourism.
Thank you.
So tourism, we're doing pretty good. So TRT collections ended last year at 11% above 2023, and restaurant collections ended just slightly up from last year. Our occupancy was up 3% over last year, and our average daily rate was up 3% over last year. So, doing well. We'll know more as we get through the season. We do have concerns regarding, because we haven't had a lot of snow. We'll see how it goes with Brian Head and winter. But we've been able to keep our own in terms of occupancy through this season. But we've had a lot of other events that have been taking place in Cedar City thanks to the Utah Summer Games and what they've been able to do with sports tournaments and drill team competition. And so that's helped us. But, you know, we've got another month or so on winter, and so we're hopeful. But Brian Head is celebrating their 50th anniversary this week, and I hope you guys can make it up there to enjoy some of the activities that they have going on in celebration. As far as workloads and caseloads, we've been meeting as advisory boards. The Tourism Advisory Board met and accepted proposals for funding for contributing partners and special events line items. And so the advisory board recommended, as you can see, it's there in that table, a little over $300,000 towards our partners who provide more than 15 days of events or activities or provide visitor services. Those are like the Cedar City events, the Utah Shakespeare Festival, SUMA, Utah Summer Games, the airport, Frontier Homestead, and Parowan. You can see the breakdown there. And then we recommended little over $65,000 for special events marketing. And this is everything from like the Lions Club with their rodeo to events in Brian Head to the Big Mountain Enduro in Brian Head and the Iron County Fair. The restaurant tax also has been meeting and have met on several projects or applications that we've received. The restaurant tax board prioritized paying off our debt to Cedar City for the Cross Hollows Event Center. We had that set up in 3 years of payments, but we've decided to pay that off early, so that has been paid off this year. We've also recommended funding for additional items for Cross Hollows, as well as some things for leisure services, as well as trail improvements for the BLM and the Forest Service, some updates to SUMA and also the Utah Summer Games, and some marketing for the airport, and some money towards pickleball for Parowan, and of course Shakespeare Festival. Let's see. We are moving on from that, we are partnering with the Utah Office of Tourism on a destination development workshop here in Cedar City in August. This is going to have an emphasis on agritourism, dark sky, and indigenous destination product development. We're going to have a night, kind of a dinner night, where we're going to be at a farm and we're going to actually do some dark sky stuff. And so we would like to invite you to that. That will be August 11th, and details will come. We've included a report of all the advertising that we've been working on here in the wintertime. It just breaks down for you where and how we place advertising. We do, it's this report right here. It's a little hard to read, but it's small. But basically, it just kind of shows you that what we're up to. tourism development wise. And I believe that's all I have. I did want to report on the legislative session. They did approve a 0.75% TRT tax increase that will be added on to the tax bill as people are paying for room nights in Iron County and throughout the state. That 0.75% is going back to the state. 0.25% of that is going towards a mitigation fund to help with search and rescue. And then 0.5% is going towards a pot of money towards infrastructure building for something major in the state of Utah. That's a fund that could be building towards Major League Baseball, or it could be towards the Olympics, but it is a state tax. There is an option on that tax to add for counties to add a 0.25% to our own TRT. Right now, I don't see a reason for us to add that 0.25% on, but if we want to take advantage of the fund that's being built for that search and rescue, we have to enact that 0.25. So, just making
Say
you
that
aware.
again. If we want to take advantage of the
State fund, they have 0.25% that they are going to
Right.
create a fund for search and rescue mitigation.
right,
But the only way a county can access that money it's a grant program. We have to engage that 0.25% here in our county.
also.
So,
So it's kind of like the transportation tax that we had to do a couple of years ago. If we didn't enact that 0.25, then we weren't eligible for those state transportation
other-
funds.
which is, so I don't know what our search and rescue needs are or where we're at on that. I haven't had a chance to talk to Sheriff Carpenter. So, but this was enacted because there are many counties who do not have
Right.
the funds to take care of their search and rescue or to take care of an ambulance and things like that. So,
And do you know the timeline when that would need to take place?
so the tax goes into place July, if I remember right. But if we want to enact it, we just do it through a resolution, and then we can enact it anytime we want to after that July period. So the Hospitality Association of Iron County supported the 0.75%, but they were not sure how to say, to express the support for an additional tax here in Iron County. But if there's a need, I think that we could bring them in and have them be supportive.
I guess the question I have is, even if we were to do that, what percentage of that the state has available would we be able to even receive?
And that is a question right now, because we do not know how that grant is going to work, who is going to oversee that grant. And so there's a lot of questions out there regarding it. So, but it did pass. And probably if we looked at it, we would probably enact at the same time in which we would apply.
Do you have any feel of how some of the other counties are feeling about it? It seems like a little bit of an interesting, like a Faustian bargain a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we all feel for those counties who cannot take care of ambulance and search and rescue. They're
overwhelmed with
overwhelmed.
the need.
But it's hard because, the people who are needing search and rescue aren't necessarily staying in hotels. They bring their hotel with them. They typically bring their RV, and
They're not generating that revenue.
they're not generating that revenue. They're not, they're not necessarily going to grocery stores. They're not necessarily, purchasing items within the county that is being impacted.
This is a little unfair to ask you off the top of your head, but do you know how Iron County compares to other places in terms of the
Search and rescue? or-
TRT or CRT tax? Like, are we
Yes.
are we middle of the road? Are we
We
high?
are middle of the road. So the state Tourism Industry Association, with all of us as destination marketing organizations, we did a study, and we compared ourselves to other places in other states in terms of and we compared our destination to a similar destination outside of the state to see what our taxes were. And in Iron County, we're in the middle, so we're competitive. Bryan Head is a little up there because they enact other taxes because of the resort and how close they are to Cedar Breaks. So they are allowed to collect more taxes, impact taxes. So Bryan Head's a little high, but Cedar City is right in the middle. So we could actually take on a little bit, but if we take on too much more, we will be making ourselves not competitive with other destinations across the country.
Yeah.
So in terms of other destinations in the state, we're all kind of some are higher, some are low. So we're fortunate here in Iron County that we can take on a little bit, but we cannot take on a lot more. And we know there's with the Olympics coming, what's going to happen with taxes, and are they going to be raising the taxes, the TRT taxes, to help mitigate more of the Olympics? That's a little unknown. So.
Hey, do you have Mike Hilliger at the Sheriff's Department's contact?
I do not.
I'll send it to you. He's their liaison with the search and rescue. He's probably going to be able to. Isn't that right, Shalon? I'm not speaking out of the top of my head, am I? So he may be able to
Give us an idea.
He's really involved, kind of boots on the ground with the search and rescue guys. So he would be a good one to talk to kind of feel him out.
Okay.
I'll send you his contact.
It feels anecdotally like we're not like Washington County. I don't think we're anything like Washington County. I think we have a few call outs per year who are visitor related. But when you look at somebody like Washington County or Garfield County or Wayne, they're certainly more impacted because of their national parks, and there are definitely a lot more search and rescue aspects. So anyways, things to think about. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Good, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Good job. Right, corrections, Shalon. Way ahead of me.
It's me.
You were being Sam this morning.
I was?
Yeah.
I'll be done. I never look at I never pay attention to whose nameplate's where.
That's an upgrade for you.
It is an upgrade.
I gotta know who I'm talking to.
Okay. So our overall budget is good. We're at 11%. We do have some unexpected expenses, which Lucas is going to talk to you about when he goes over his budget. But so what you'll see is we have something that we've done for the 20 plus years that I've been there, which is their GEL standards, which they're legal-based guidelines. So we have somebody that comes in and inspects our GEL to make sure that we're up to par. And for a lot of years, the Sheriff's Association paid for this. And in this last year, in the last couple months, actually, the Sheriff's Association decided that they weren't gonna support that anymore, which is very unfortunate because it's what keeps us in line. And I don't want to bear my testimony on it, but it really is a great thing. So for $2,700 a year, they'll let us keep attached to these GEL standards, but we will be paying that. So Lucas is going to ask for that in his budget adjustment, is the $2,700 to keep us. And what it is there's 608 standards that they go through, and they tell us like the rationale, and this is what you should be doing, and this is what your policy should say. And then we go in and we prove to them that, hey, this is our policy. Here's some proofs on this is what we do. And it's great not only to keep us out of litigation, but it is great for my new staff to understand the why. We have a lot of new staff that they are some of them are coming right out of high school and then working in a jail, and it is great for them to see, oh, this is why I need to do things a certain way. So anyway, that's a great thing that the Sheriff's Association believes that they are going to create their own. And I hope that they can do that at some point, but it's going to take some time. And the ones we've been using, again, they're backed by case law, and they've been really great for us. So I asked Sheriff Carpenter if he would allow me to keep those until the Sheriff's Association presents what they're going to use in replacement. Again, I think it will take some time for it to do that. But so that's the unexpected expenses that didn't make this list. Our cost per mill, they went up a little bit since the last quarter. A lot of times the reason for that is because we buy some things in bulk at the first of the year, like our little Cal packs that we are able to send with our trays. So, but it has gone up since last quarter. Our bookings are pretty consistent. Our population's pretty consistent. We are taking on a couple more federal inmates than we have in the past. Again, we're trying to create a healthy relationship. I mean, we've always had it with the marshals, but we also want to keep it so that when our new facility comes, that they're willing to fill our beds for us. So we have taken a few extra federal inmates on. Our work crew on that second page, they work hard. They do a really good job. They're all over in the county. I have five openings right now. In the last 3 months, we have had 2 deputy terminations. We were able to hire three new employees. One included a nurse, which we're really excited to have. She's been doing stellar and has been a really great asset for us. Promotions, we were able to promote Corporal Leva, Corporal Coons, and Sergeant Stammet. And we do have, like always, we have a lot of long-term leave. We have 4 on FMLA right now and our 1 extended military. I think we're almost to the 5-year mark with him. So, but our planned projects are the Sheriff's Complex, which is exciting. We went out there on Thursday and they have, they've poured 26 cells, which is, I guess, 26 units, which equals 2 cells per unit. So 52 cells and 104 beds. It's crazy, right? I mean, it's such a neat thing to see, actually, that there's walls and cells out there. So that's exciting. Last week, our virtual welder was delivered for future classes. BZI donated a portion of that, and our opioid money covered the remaining cost in that. So what that will do is, I believe that BZI is providing an instructor, and he'll be able to come in, and then they'll be able to learn welding skills on our virtual machine, which that's, we'll see how it goes. Kind of crazy. In our new facility, it'll be awesome because we'll have the extra space. Right now, we're just trying to find the space to put this machine. Our work crew is very excited about the safety and efficiency of their new skid steer. He wanted me to make sure that he is very grateful for that. And we did get our body scanner, and it is in use. And that came actually through Chris Stewart grant money. And it's kind of a funny story, but that money ended up going to Kane County Sheriff's Office. And so when the machine came to us, I asked the sheriff, I'm like, well, where am I supposed to send this bill? And he says, well, send it over to Kane County. And so I send it over there, and their jail commander said, how did you fund this? And I said, well, funny story. My sheriff said to send it to your sheriff, and he'd pay it. So anyway, so that's been, we're really grateful for that. That's something that we'll be able to move to the new facility with us. We have 1 deputy that's currently in post. We had 3 that graduated. We were able to pick up a certified deputy out of from the prison. She's been doing great. We have been seeing an incredible increase in our programming since we launched this Ignite program last year. Just in the last 3 months alone, we have had 6 inmates that have obtained their GED, and that's really unheard of. We didn't even see that in a year. Before our Inside Out Dad graduation, we've had 2 ceremonies of 37 graduates. Hustle, which is basically it's a program that they can do in their cells. They get these magazines, and they read through them, and then they take questions at the end. It's a life skills deal. We've had 9 complete that one. And then State Bank of Southern Utah still is doing their financial literacy class, which has been great. I actually think they're going to do one for our staff, and because it's really been a good program. And they every 4 weeks they have 8 to 12 inmates that complete that program, so that's exciting. If you go to our revenue page, that's for the year of 2024. And so there's our revenue. I even printed a copy of this check because this is one of the highest checks we've seen, this jail reimbursement check. And I'll just try to explain this. So we get paid a daily rate for our state inmates and for our federal inmates. But what we do, we also get money if somebody is sentenced to prison and then they do county jail time in lieu of prison time. So basically, they're on probation, and part of their probation is to complete time in the jail. Well, the legislature every year gives a big pot of money to county jails, and then we turn in how many inmates we have that do so many days. And so we never know exactly the check that we're going to get at the end of the year. It's kind of the surprise check. We've never seen one this large, so that's why I printed a copy of it, because our office manager was like, woohoo! So we were pretty excited about that. And then my final page is we got a new jail historian, and she started back up our jail journal. And so I just thought that was a little fun of what we've got going on at the jail. She'll probably do that quarterly, kind of keep everybody, I don't know, a little kumbaya, right? Any questions for me?
Good report.
Oh,
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
you rock.
All right, well, guess we're going to commission. Ken, you want to go first?
Sure. So last week I was able to go out to the Modena Canyon Road and go check out the ghost rock in the area where the mine is proposed to be. I wanted to make sure I was familiar with that and be able to know personally what that was and check that out. So that was good. Went to the Iron County Council of Governments on Thursday of last week, and was able to hear from the mayors throughout the county, updates from them. As was mentioned before, Brian Head is having their 50th birthday this week, so that'll be a good opportunity. There's lots of activities that are planned up there. Parowan has a new bridge coming in here on the north end or south end of Main Street that they were talking about, or Mayor Molly Halderman was talking about. So that's a big project and looks like it'll be impactful to the city. And then also was able to go to the Planning Commission meeting for just a little bit. I missed part of that, but was able to attend that. So
I couldn't make the planning commission. How'd the vote go on the mine?
they did approve that. I got a call from a gentleman that just wanted to tell me he didn't agree with it because of the
Same one I called me.
because of the restriction that they did not put on the nighttime blasting.
Same guy called me. They didn't talk about that as a condition about not nighttime blasting.
Not while I was there, no. And I like I said, I was just briefly there.
I couldn't make it. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Mr. Blake.
So I had an opportunity this last week to attend the National Association of Counties Conference in Washington, D.C. I actually flew out 2 days early to meet with SU Aviation, who were lobbying for some funding and some programming. So we know right now SU's providing about 10% of all rotor pilots in the nation. I actually think it's closer to 20%, but they'll know more when they get their new, all their new figures in this year. What what that translates into economic development and such for the community is about $80 million a year injection into our local economy. And that's really a conservative look. They're looking at some national legislation that will allow them to become part of the helicopter pilot training process for the U.S. Army. They were actually approached by the Army to see if they can help out with some of the training needs, but it's going to take some federal legislation. But since I was going to be out there already, it's really helpful to be able to talk about not only community support, but the economic impact and things like that. So that was good. I had an opportunity to before NACO started. Spent a couple of days on the Hill. I was going to list all of the reps and senators that we met with, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But I will tell you that my feet hurt. But this was a kind of a light hill visit. We only did about 8 miles in the tunnels. Last time I was there with them, we did 12 miles in the tunnels in church shoes. In a day. That's daily. And then we had then our National Association of Counties meeting started on Saturday. I sit on the Justice and Public Safety Committee for NACO. Some of the issues we talked about this year are FEMA issues, FEMA disaster recovery. Something that we've unfortunately found is kind of near and dear to our hearts here. In fact, Reed, I've got a thing I need to talk to you about. Just, I don't know. I'll get a hold of you sometime this week in regards to FEMA, and I've got it all. I've got it all at home, but it's kind of attached to the Endangered Species Act. Are you familiar with any of that? So it's a big deal in Oregon, but it seems to be migrating. I've got it all. I was going to come and talk to you guys about it, so I'll come find you this week. There was just more hill visits. A lot of the most beneficial part of those conferences is just meeting with other commissioners and legislators and stuff from around the country. So I was actually in DC 7 days, which is way too long. Usually, 3's about right, but with everything else going on, I was there. In fact, I was like, man, I've been here for a minute. I was there from Wednesday through the next Tuesday. So it was good, but man, I'm glad to be home.
Yeah. So quick question, is the SUU program, is it at max capacity, or do they have room for more pilots? Is there a waiting list, or what's the scenario there?
They're basically at max, and I hate to speak for them, but they're at about max capacity now. One of the other things that they're trying to do is build a new training facility. They're actually working on the property for that. The funding is the issue. I know on the maintenance side, they can more than double their maintenance program with the new facility. I'm not sure what the increase on their fixed wing and rotor, but they also allow increases in that as well. And that's just a huge boon to our economy and such. So, with what they've got right now, they're kind of topped out, but they're working on a 16-acre piece of property that's adjacent to the airport now, and looking for funding to help build that building. With that, they'll be able to move their maintenance program inside. Right now, much of their maintenance program is under tents.
Ooh.
And so it's really difficult. one of the things that's, I guess, so cool about their program, they have about 100% placement in the job market upon graduation.
That's awesome.
On their maintenance side, they actually sometimes have trouble graduating students because once they get certain certifications they need, the airlines and other places snap them up out of the program before they graduate with 6-figure-a-year jobs. So that's a program in our community that's actually churning out marketable students and putting them right into
Job
the jobs.
placement.
So yeah,
That's exciting.
And they've been super good to us as far as during the flooding and stuff. If there's issues that we need air support or one of us to go look at an issue, like when we had the floods a few years ago, just every morning I would go up and then I would be able to kind of see where breaches and stuff were, and then translate that to the ground, translate that to the road department, to emergency management. We would kind of do those surveys every morning. They've done things with Maria and tourism as far as like fall foliage photography. They're just really good. Anything that we need a ride somewhere, or that it's an advantage to see it from the air, they're super good to get us in there and help us out. With law enforcement, they're particularly helpful. We have a relationship with them through the sheriff's office. For instance, Friday we had a pursuit that ended actually here in Parowan with a death, that they provided air support for that pursuit and for that ongoing incident. They're super good to work with. So if we can, provide them with a little bit of political backing to help get them through, certain hoops, it's well worth it for us. So I don't know. I like those guys. They entertain me. That's all I've got.
Thank you. I too attended the NACO conference. It was good. One evening we were able to. I'd scheduled a dinner with my sister and her husband. Her husband does IT for several senators back there and some consulting, and my sister is the vice president's executive assistant. So it was fun to go to dinner. But before that, her husband took us to the Senate chamber. We watched them do some voting. We had a chance. Tammy Pearson, Commissioner Pearson from Beaver County, and Commissioner Taylor from Garfield. The three of us were there. Mike Lee came. I texted him, and he came up and visited with us probably for 40 minutes, and had a great discussion about public land, some of the things that are going on. One of them is the reduction of the grand staircase and the Bears Ears. And they're working on that over in Garfield County and San Juan on those two projects to downsize those monuments, and so that's interesting talking to him about that. It was interesting talking to my sister about her new job in the West Wing of the White House, about 30 feet away from the Oval Office, and what happens there and how intense of a schedule that is, and she said it's a grueling job. But I've spent and then also there's a company called Edge that could possibly help us in the county save some money on our health insurance. I talked to their booth and got some information and sent that to our HR department to research whether that would work out or not, but it sounded appealing for our county to maybe reduce some of our costs for prescription drugs and some of those expenses. I spent this Saturday. I went out and snooped around the jail site for a couple of hours. Walked around, looked at what was going on. They're doing some over excavation for the pads. They're pouring the cells. They're coating them with epoxy. It's really interesting to look at that site. They've got a lot of the water lines run down the roads. I've been working over the weekend with some techs going back and forth on the water meter sizes. There was a kind of a mix-up with the drawings. the engineers drew it wrong. They thought they were going to use a 6-inch meter for fire flow and for domestic, which or culinary, which is not that's not going to cut it because we'd have to pay a gajillion dollars for that 6-inch meter. And I just reaffirmed that we're going to use the 3-inch meter from the old jail, and they're redrawing some of that, and going to probably do some kind of a bypass inside the vault with the 6-inch fire flow. Anyway, been working through that with Leighton Construction and Jonathan Stathis, our engineer at the city. I was on the phone with Mike Platt this morning before this meeting, talking about a few of those things, trying to get that figured out. I attended Board of Health meetings this last couple weeks and Human Services for 5 County. Those are always good. And that's about my report. And so, let's see, we're 10:08. Let's take a 10-minute break. It just seems like even with less reports, I guess it was the Shakespeare moving that up. Took a little
Saves
time,
us
but that was
time
good.
in the end.
Yep. So let's we'll resume our meeting. Thank you. We ready, John?
It was beautiful, not a cloud in the sky, and 20 degrees.
Cold, cold.
It was cold.
Yeah, the times I've been, it's been nice.
Yeah, so we need to go back and spend a little bit of time, but it was cool.
You got the little round top.
Yeah, we hiked all over it, down into Devil's Den.
All right, like I say, if I move it, then you can't.
Got back in the car and feel your toes again. And
Try that. It works. I moved it again, make sure okay.
We ready, John?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. Sorry for the delay. We had a few technical difficulties, but we're ready to go. It's 10:30. We'll resume our second meeting of the day. On the agenda, item number 1 is a public hearing, discussion and possible approval of a proposed zone change from residential 1/2 acre R1/2 to commercial C for approximately 5.28 acres within the description listed in the agenda. Applicant is Edward Kelly Blackburn.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a zone change that was recommended by the Planning Commission for a parcel in Summit. You can see it's just located on the south side of I-15 or east side, whichever way you think I-15 runs through Summit. And it's a property that is adjacent to commercial. It's zoned R1/2. You can see that the parcel outlined here with the star on it is the parcel. Belongs to Mr. Blackburn. He has had an operational Christmas tree farm there for a number of years, growing Colorado blue spruce. Because of the Department of Agriculture and the way that that works, and with the county zoning, he's not able to have a true tree farm there without it being zoned differently. And so the proposal is to rezone it from R1/2 to commercial so that he can have, and the Planning Commission reviewed and approved, contingent upon the zone change approval, a conditional use permit for a commercial plant nursery that would fit the use for the tree farm, and also for a resort lodge, which would allow him to have events there as a reception center, and have some small rental cabins that he would like to do. So I'll just kind of show you what he's looking at doing. This is an aerial of the property that shows the couple of ponds, another one under construction, and where the trees are dispersed throughout the property. This is the plan showing what he's anticipating for future build out, where the little dots are where the little cabins could be located if he gets building those. Of course, a lot of the things relate to the size of the water system and how many people he can have there, and so the conditional use permit that was granted regulates that, and they'll work with the Southwest Public Health in terms of how many he can have there for an event and for overnight stays, depending on what kind of water system he has, and that's all been worked through. So what we're looking at, this is just a few images of the property currently. Kind of shows what he does with the trees and his big tree spade there, and how he can ball them and then sell them, and what his facility looks like, what he does there with some of the other things, and some of the facilities that he has at the property that provide for gatherings, family reunions, weddings, photography, different things that occur on the property. This is I teased Kelly that he would have to build these exactly to look like this. He just wants to do some unique overnight stays, little cabin units, little something that would be unique to fit the property and fit the area. I think Kelly realizes it's going to be a long-term project, and it's not going to happen overnight, but he wants to crank out a couple and just see how it goes. And so we do have provision in the conditional use permit that allows him to use temporary facilities for like public gatherings and stuff until he can develop it, and he's got a time period of submitting a plan for getting a septic system in for these units and for any public restrooms when he has public gatherings and things like that. So The zone change is all we're dealing with today because the conditional use permit was granted contingent upon the approval of the zone change. So it is adjacent. I looked at that other map. I just wanted to point out that it is adjacent to commercial. We're looking at rezoning this to commercial. And we did have one comment from an adjacent property owner on the east side that just kind of wanted to know how it would work, and that he didn't have, adequate parking, or if he didn't have the water system he needed, how that would work. And I responded to that, and he seemed grateful for that, and I haven't heard back. And so I don't think that, I think he just was trying to get more information and understand what the project was going to be, and that's the only neighbor that or any
What is he
comment
doing
we've
for
heard.
water?
He has a well. He's not in the area that the Summit system can serve, so he is on a private well. He has a 3,000 gallon tank there that can also supply. He's using for his irrigation, can provide some fire flow, and he has some facilities there for that would have to be expanded and developed as he goes to a public water system, or depending on how large he's going to be. And he knows what his limitations would be. So
with our septic density survey, this is, what was it, how many acres it was?
yeah, it's an existing lot.
So it's
It's
so
an
we're-
existing
it's
parcel,
grandfathered
so
in.
he can do that with an existing parcel.
He can tie all those little units into one septic.
And it'd be all approved by Southwest Public Health. Yep. They would approve and review that, depending on how large the system is. So really, that's what we're looking at. We do have to have a public hearing on the zone change, and so unless you have other questions about why we're rezoning and what we're doing, we can go to the zone change or the public hearing.
We'll do the public hearing and then open up for the commissioners if they have questions. So Chair declares a public hearing open for this agenda item number 1. For those that would like to speak to this, if they can approach the mic and state your name. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And Reed, if you want to go ahead.
We have reviewed the normal considerations that we look at in terms of what services are available, transportation corridors, drainage, all of the things that we look at to say, is this property suitable to be rezoned to commercial and have commercial facilities there? And the Planning Commission believed that it was. As we reviewed these, staff believed it was. He has good access off of a good paved road. He has good visibility from the interstate. He has the ability to make that a commercial facility. It's adjacent to other commercial. And it's not right in the middle of all other residential or anything like that. He's got some neighbors on his south. They're residential. Most of those are family. So maybe that's the reason that they're not here objecting. They're family. Sometimes those are the ones that would, I guess. You never know. But the interstate is right there, and there is the interstate presence. One of the things that we would be concerned about, of course, is traffic and possibly noise, and the interstate absorbs a lot of that. When you're out on the property, you know the interstate's there, but yet it's serene enough that you can still have an experience there. But I think any gatherings or the things that would normally occur with a reception or a wedding or something like that would be absorbed by the interstate noise, and so I don't think that noise is a real concern either. So anyway, that's where we're at. Unless you have questions or
Any questions from the commission?
discussion.
No.
No.
Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve zone change from residential 1/2 acre to commercial for approximately 5.28 acres within the boundaries that are on the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Reed.
Okay.
We'll go to agenda item number 2, public comments. 3-minute time limit per speaker for public comment. Participants should not repeat others' comments, only for items not on the agenda. No items related to commission's role as an appeal board. Comments should be directed to the commission, no attacks on people's character. If there's anybody like to speak. Seeing none, we'll go to number 3, which was done in the 9 o'clock meeting, so hopefully there's no one there for that. But our Shakespeare folks, John D'Antonio and Michael Barr, kind of gave us a preview of this year's exciting schedule for the Shakespeare Theater and other plays that they're presenting. We'll go to number 4, discussion and possible approval of a proposed annexation into Cedar City creating an island or peninsula of unincorporated property, approximately 19.1 acres, located near 400 West and 3000 North, Cedar City, Utah, within the description listed in the agenda. Applicants are Ryan Brindley, Cedar City, Iron County, presented by Reed.
Thank you. As you're aware from last month, we had a similar situation. The state law, this is just a copy of the language in the state law, that if you read just the underlined part, an unincorporated area may not be annexed into a municipality unless the annexation will not leave or create an unincorporated island or peninsula, except unless the county and municipality have otherwise agreed. So this is a property that does, this is located just right in between Enoch and Cedar City on 3000 North. The parcel with the star outlined in blue is a 19.11 acre parcel. The property that's gold is in the county, uncolored, purple and brown. The white stuff on the south is Cedar City, and the white stuff above it is Enoch. So it falls right in that area between the two. And there is a peninsula that exists already with the property on the left, the property below it. There is a provision in state law that says that if you're annexing property that's already in an existing peninsula, it does not need the county's agreement. But this property extends to the north beyond the incorporated that isn't part of an existing peninsula, and it creates a larger peninsula. We do have a peninsula of unincorporated property there to the west, but this one would increase the size of that. So just real briefly, the way that we calculate that, the property, the image on the left there, you can see the red dotted line identifies the perimeter of the unincorporated peninsula. So there's 13,487 feet of property that goes around. This doesn't have a pointer, so I'm just going to walk over here real quick. You can see here, the way that the law describes it, if there's a line drawn at any location from what's being annexed to what is already annexed, and it leaves an area of unincorporated area that this distance is 25% or less than the perimeter of what's being left, then it's considered a peninsula. And so this is 16%, this distance is 16% of this perimeter area. So that's what creates a peninsula of unannexed property that requires the county to agree to the annexation. So the things that we look at and say, okay, how will this affect us? We had a meeting with Cedar City. We do on all of these annexations with the municipality and the developer, and we go through this checklist that we developed to say, okay, eligibility is one consideration, roads and access, emergency response, how will those be affected for both the part that's being annexed, the pieces that are already in the city, and the unincorporated area, and we evaluate those for roads and access, provision of service, impact on future annexation, land use compatibility with the general plans for the city and the county, whether we would consider any pre-annexation agreements. And so we go through this checklist with their engineer, their department, and see whether there are any real issues that this would raise. And so as we look at, and this is just kind of an abbreviated version of that, we determined that it is eligible because with the county's consent, it would be eligible for annexation. It's adjacent, but it does create a larger peninsula, so the county has to consent. But there are no real issues with annexing this property. It doesn't create or block the ability to the county to continue to provide services to the properties they currently provide. There's no requirement of an easement or anything across any other county property that would be required to preserve this property. This property really, in order to develop, needs to annex because water is not available by the county or the conservancy district in that area. They don't have any services. And so the city's water is in that road right in front in 3000. The sewer's there. It does fall, I think I had a picture here of the airport overlay. It is within the instrument approach zone, the top portion of it, 2/3 of it, and about 1/3 of it in the approach zone. So between the approach zone and the instrument approach zone, this property has some limitations in terms of residential, but their intention is to annex it in and develop it as INM1. They do some storage units, and that's what Ryan Brindley does, and this is kind of what his intention is with the property. And so in that respect, it makes sense under the city's plan. We have a little different in the unincorporated area. Density is a little higher for residential than it is in the city if it's in the instrument approach zone. So to develop that into INM1 makes a lot of sense in the city, because then they can hook on and get services for their water and sewer. And so we just couldn't see where it would create any problem for any of the adjacent property owners or prohibit them from being able to do anything, developing access, providing services, or anything like that. So that was the Planning Commission's recommendation as well, is that the county grant consent or agreement to the annexation. Any discussion, questions?
Any questions? No.
I would move to approve the proposed annexation into Cedar City, creating an island or peninsula of unincorporated property, approximately 19.18 acres, located near 400 West and 3000 North Cedar City, within the legal description as provided within the agenda.
And may I just clarify for
Yes.
language, we probably want to not approve we're not approving the annexation. The city would do that. We would simply consent or agree to the annexation.
Okay, so amend my
We
motion
don't have approval
to
authority.
include we are approving consent to the proposed annexation into Cedar City.
Thank you.
Would second that motion.
Been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think read two in the future. Maybe we could add that word. Just add consent to it, island or peninsula, on agenda language. Maybe
Yep, will do.
that would be, I think, helpful.
Yeah.
Build that
On
in.
the agenda, as actual agenda. Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be technical there. I think it was just a subtle difference.
Oh, that's easy.
We'll go to item number 5, discussion and possible ratification of a contract with Emergency Services Consulting International, ESCI, to perform a fire district feasibility study in Iron County. Who's going to talk about
I
that?
assume John?
Yeah, give me 2 shakes.
Okay.
Okay, we've got Chief Barton here from Paraguna. Last time we had been working on an RFP for a fire study, a feasibility study for fire districts in Iron County, districts in Iron County. We were able to talk ESCI into bidding on it. We met with them this week. This last week, Mike was at the dentist. Otherwise, he'd have been there. But we met.
Rather
with
been at the meeting, but
I was going to say emergency root canal, but
had a clean bill of health.
oh, very good. Anyway, we just kind of had a kickoff meeting last week. The week before that, Commissioner Blake, as that liaison, signed the contract to begin services with the SCI. This item is on for ratification today, and I don't know if Royce would like to speak to it. We basically, at this point, are just gathering information for the firm, and the idea is not that they're going to tell us what to do, but they're going to make recommendations based on a bunch of factors as far as what our fire situation looks like. The north, we have several geographical areas that are unique, like Paraguna and the services they provide. kind of the place where Parowan sits, the uniqueness of Bryan Head. You have Cedar City and the wildland urban interface. You've got suburban areas. We've got a lot of public lands. And then, of course, we have the West. And so we have Burrell and Newcastle, a tremendous amount of fire potential in the wildlands. And
You've left out Canaryville Fire. We would be.
I was getting there.
Remiss.
I would be.
Look,
No,
we
I would
maybe
be
should have
afraid.
mentioned Canaryville Fire and Chief Allred.
Chief Allred might come after me in my sleep. You know, and I didn't say anything when Maria was talking, but you know, when it comes to search and rescue, you know, they actually get a fair majority because of the Canary Falls, and everybody breaks their ankle in the exact same spot. So,
Right. Well, yeah.
so
We
there's
used to
that.
until
New ladder.
we cut out some access to the spot, the ankle breaking spot.
See, that was a good thing, and I remember that. But
It's way down. But Canara also does. They do help fund search and rescue. There is a stipend that comes out of Canaryville, pretty much yearly,
Yeah.
that contributes to our search and rescue fund. So
I just my own personal opinion, I'm grateful for how the county handled that, and how beneficial that's been for Canaryville town.
absolutely, yep, that's been awesome.
But that being said, the study is in its early days. We've started pulling call reports, for-
Call volume.
call volume reports, where the calls happen. You know, like the North 40, that's a big deal because we're looking at him. Royce is usually in fact, Commissioner Blake is a police officer, and he always cusses because no matter how fast he gets there, Royce beats him. He even had a medical at the Maverick here in Parowan, and Royce beat him to it. So it's become a running
It's
joke.
become a fun game that I lose all the time, but which is kudos to Royce.
That's it. Anyway, so looking at call volume for both fire and EMS, how the funding is appropriated currently, how the contracts were set up originally, and some of those are going to go way back. And so we're just gathering information. We'll probably meet again this week or next. They figure there's about 6-step process that they have for that, and we're on step 1/2 at this point. And so the agenda item for the commissioners today is to simply possibly ratify the contract that was entered into because of time constraints.
Royce, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I go back to you guys. This county is such a unique mess. You know, out west, south, you know, Cedar pretty much handles it. The north end, I mean, we go from Paragon all the way to milepost 91, which is Iron County, which is only 7 miles from Beaver City, and then we go all the way over U20. But main thing I want to do is be involved with this, have my input. Before we can even start guessing, we need to know what our tax, what we'd receive in funding. Can we continue to fund it with what is given through this, you know, district thing? Right now, this end of the county, right now, we'd be looking at 3 different districts. Parowan is one, Paragon, and Bryan Head, because of the difference in pay versus volunteer versus equipment, amount of equipment they have. You know, it wouldn't be fair to me donate 7 trucks and Parowan has 3, for instance. I mean, there's really some challenges with making it financially right with you as the county and us as the cities. Enoch and Cedar, I'm going to sit back and eat popcorn, and that's going to be awesome. But
You may or may not have been not the main reason for this.
well, I'd really like to sit down with you guys and this thing step by step.
We certainly will.
And honestly, I mean, I got 45 years of a chief, but I want the very best for Paragon and my county. I love this county and my city.
As do we. And I would remind everyone that, you know, commissioning a study is not the same as taking action. And, you know, if as my grandpa would say, some prune pickers come in and tell us how to do things, we might not have to agree. You know what I mean? And so
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, it's you guys don't have your meetings at 3 o'clock in the morning in a snowstorm on Buckhorn. But anyway, I just want to be part of it and make sure it's the best for our city first,
Right.
and that it's the best for the county. Oh,
yeah, and I will say they have built in. I mean, they're a very reputable firm, and they have built in several meetings with some of these guys. Like at the first we're meeting with these guys, but also with the chiefs and.
I can work with about anyone if they're fair and honest is all.
Yeah.
So.
And again, the most they
You
will
have any
do.
questions for me for what's going on in it for this end of the county? What?
I don't, but I know what's going on at this end of the county. Paraguna Fire and the operation that Royce runs is, I would stack them against any other department anywhere. They're freaking awesome.
But we're talking 45 years of experience in building the program. I mean, but we want to share whatever we can to help is all. The only reason I'm here when you have these on the agenda, I want to keep track of it is all.
So you mentioned 3 fire districts.
Well, I mean, I could sit down
Can
and
do
show you
one fire district for the whole county, or
well, if it's equal, if it's fair, if each city and each, the county is bringing an equal amount into the district, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, this end of the county would not be equal if we brought the equipment together and the stations and everything. It wouldn't be an equal joint together as a contract. Just because the difference of equipment, manpower, I could show you over and over what would be the difference. And it's just got to be fair.
Well, and it's like you say, it's so unique. Like Enoch City doesn't have a department, and so they're utterly dependent on Cedar City, whereas Paraguna, being smaller, has a department that's quite active, and so we have different areas. So one of the things that may come out of the study is do nothing. That might be one of their recommendations. Mm-hmm. They may recommend 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 districts, because there's a reasonable expectation that you might have a unique district for the demand and need out in the West Desert, and it's very different than what you would have on the north end. And Parowan and Paraguna might be unique enough, and Bryan Head might be an island, But that's the point of the study, is to be able to analyze those kind of things in terms of response time, in terms of staffing, in terms of funding, in terms of equipment. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and that's why having somebody like Royce
there
is
is
valuable.
so much to entail financially and then capability.
So
just to give you guys an idea, we had a meeting Tuesday from January to February last year, and January, February this year. Paraguna has got over 800 hours more this year than last year. That's how fast our requirement, our call volume is changing in this area because of homes, because of freeway, because of the dryness. We've had 7 wildfires this year since January, and from Summit to there. We would respond into Cedar twice last year to assist them. We go to Beaver once a year or twice. But this year, 800 hours over last year. That's how much, our dynamics is changing.
How does that help?
Honest.
Is that just goodwill? I mean, with like Beaver, do they come help you? You help them?
We have a joint. Thing. It's only when Beaver is overwhelmed we come and stand by and help them. But it's very rare. We went and stood by for Garfield one time last year, but they've done the same for us.
Sure.
We call that mutual aid, and it's kind of a standing thing. Same with Enterprise and Burrell.
I'm going to hold
Canaverville and
George
Cedar City.
Very feet to the fire. He ain't going to take me for nothing.
So like the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District is a taxing authority.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it was one district, that have taxing authority, or if it's multiple districts, that tax the geographic
People,
Yep.
people that's in that district, right?
Yeah.
That is one part of considering a fire district, is that there is a taxing authority. Because right now, I mean, how do we fund it? Well, it comes out of our general fund and our municipal services fund for the money that we pay Cedar City for the WUI, for the unincorporated areas. That's the same way Enoch does it. We send a certain amount of money to Paraguna, but we just use Iron County, general fund and municipal service fund for those services. And so it would change the complexion of the tax structure, and it would change the tax burden in different areas, possibly, depending on the need.
The needs.
Yeah, but that's one thing that we don't consider now, is we just kind of pay it,
Right.
And
I mean, now, since we built the Newcastle fire station, I mean, I've stopped by there coming back
Yeah.
from Pioche the other day and visited. It's a beautiful facility, and
Yep, it is.
it's
We
made
had
a
fire
huge-
chiefs meeting out there. We rotate through fire chiefs meeting into each department once a year. So
Right.
well, and to kind of reinforce Royce's point, one of the things that we are able to brag about in Iron County is that the relationship between the chiefs and the county commission, it's very productive. In a lot of places, it's easy to get contentious, and I don't want to go down that road by trying this
It's
study.
working very well right now.
Yeah.
There's always one or two sour apples in the pot, you know that.
Well,
You sit in public meetings every day. You three don't get along every day either. So, but we do very well. We really do. But I'm happy to be here, answer questions anytime. You guys need to be aware of what's going on as much as we do. So that's all I want.
Well, we appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thanks, Royce.
All right, so we need to have a motion for a ratification. Or is there any more discussion?
Not for me, no.
Which one was that?
Number 5.
Number 5.
5. I'd make a motion to for ratification of a contract with Emergency Service Consulting International to perform a fire district feasibility study in Iron County.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Number 6, discussion and possible approval of a policy to establish application requirements, review criteria, and an approval process when creating a public infrastructure district, PID. Marcus, how are you?
Marcus Keller with Cruz and Associates. Here to talk to a little bit about the PIDs.
I'm surprised Nicole isn't here.
She's outraged. She said she had something at 11, so she said she just couldn't hold her. No, I'm just kidding. She was so angry. She was beating me. She sucker punched me on the way out. No.
Well, I just signed a PID this morning. I was worried.
And then just I don't want to backtrack or anything, but I agree. As you're going through that study with the fire stuff, I've worked with a lot of small districts out in Summit County that have done the same thing, North Summit Fire, South Summit Fire. Just be aware, the more districts you end up implementing, the higher you do have a fixed cost, because there is a burden associated just by having one district in place. So there is some economies of scale. So I liked your question. Can we have one big one versus, different things there? So
and I still would say, regardless of what the recommendations are, doing nothing is still an option, because sometimes nothing is better than the path you might go down.
Right.
So, but anyways, without going back over there, I think you guys are on the right track with that for sure. But PIDs, public infrastructure districts, just to
Speaking of doing nothing versus
yeah, there we go. So just to make this very clear up front, this is not approving a PID. This is simply setting a policy so that when the county gets applicants that want a PID, they have a structure on what would be required to submit that application. They would know what information the review committee needs, and also a fee associated with it, so that the county gets compensated for any time and efforts that they put in as far as manpower, time spent, so on and so forth for this. We know this is a lot of this is going to be related to very large projects happening in the county. And I'll go into a lot of detail on PIDs here in a second on exactly what that entails. But at the end of the day, the Public Infrastructure District is simply a financing tool that large projects can take advantage of in order to do tax-exempt bonds. And so this provides a lot of benefits, I think, to both the project participant, so in a lot of cases a developer, single landowner, a couple different developers, and also too to the county, because the PID, when it issues debt, does not reflect anything onto the county's financials, books, credit, anything like that. Similar to when we did the jail financing, they asked us a bunch of questions about all the bonds related to the county. When we would do a similar type rating presentation, we would not have to mention any of the PID's debt, because that is a separate government entity than the county. So it allows the county to incentivize projects, but keeping any debt or any credit responsibility off the county's books. So just kind of wanted to paint the picture on what the PID is. So first off, just before I go into it, I kind of want to, how much detail do you want on PIDs right now? Because some people kind of have already a high understanding, so I don't want to bore you with repeat information. But if you kind of want me to give you a nice overview and summary to help you understand what a public infrastructure district is, maybe that would be helpful to kind of get us all on the same page. Is that?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So the Public Infrastructure District, or PID, was created about 3 years ago by the Utah State Legislature. And so again, this is a tool, a financing mechanism, in a lot of cases here to help with affordability on different types of projects, but it is a tool that allows a creating entity, so in this case, anything built in an unincorporated county, anything built in incorporated cities, they would be the creating entity. So anything in unincorporated Iron County, you are the creating entity, and it gives you the power to create a local district called a public infrastructure district. Again, this public infrastructure district can do one thing. It can bond and be used as a financing vehicle. But the powers and authorities that you give it, that's dependent on how big, how large, the different types of bonds it can issue. And so the county creating entity, you hold all the cards, you hold all the strings type situation. Anybody that would approach you has to get something called a governing document approved. We actually have a few more steps before they get there, but once that governing document is approved by the county to create the PID, cat's out of the bag. Anything that you approve within there, they can act within. So let's go over some of those details on what that might mean. First off, the PID could potentially have taxing ability. They can tax anybody within their boundaries. But remember, this has to be required 100% consent. So that's why we typically say it's one or two large landowners that may come and say, hey, we've got, 1,000 homes that we're wanting to build here, but we need some help on the public infrastructure because we don't have water out here. We don't have regional sewer. We don't have roads. And we need help building that so we can put in these homes. We can put in this additional infrastructure. They may say, we need a PID to help us finance some of this public infrastructure, and we need you guys to help us create that. And so those are all the terms that would be within their application. They would say, we need a mill levy up to this amount permission. We may want special assessment authority. How long, how big can the bond be? How long can the bond, how much taxing authority, and how long the taxing authority can be. All those questions and information would be described as part of their application and would be reviewed by the county. Why is this a benefit? So in a lot of different areas, public infrastructures, in my opinion, are essential because there is such a heavy lift to basically go out and bring out the water, bring out the sewer, miles and miles off of any current connection. And typically that lift is paid in the form of impact fees, which basically means, hey, county or entity, we want you to pay for it up front, and then we'll reimburse you once it gets out there through our impact fees, right? So impact fees are typically in arrears and still puts the burden on the county and the residents in order to make that happen. Whereas the public infrastructure district's nice because you're saying, hey, if you need this essential infrastructure, instead of putting the burden onto the county and our current residents, we're going to give you this financing tool so you can pay for it. Mm-hmm. If you want to tax yourself and the property that you own, great. If you want to do a special assessment on yourself and the property you own, great. You can use that money, that potential bonding ability to raise funds, pay for this infrastructure, and then that would allow you to build or bring out that public infrastructure. And just keep in mind, these are tax-exempt bonds, similar to the jail where there were standards we had to uphold to meet tax-exempt qualification. Any money that's spent for these bonds from the PID has to be for public infrastructure purposes. So typically it's infrastructure that's going to be dedicated back to the county, back to the Central Iron Water Conservancy District, whoever's going to be doing the ongoing O&M. So unlike an HOA, the PID will come in there, they'll finance the projects, they'll basically give away all the assets that they financed to whoever's.
They give it all back.
Oh, absolutely.
They pay for it. The residents in that geographic area pay for it, but they give it back to maintain it.
Exactly. They do not do any O&M. All the O&M is the responsibility of the municipalities, governments, special service districts, whoever's going to do the long term. Their only responsibility is to maintain and pay the debt. Once the debt is paid off, the PID dissolves. So that's essentially what it is. Now, typically these PIDs last about 30 years. I mean, that's the only way to make it efficient, is to have a 30-year runway on it. But at the end of the day, you know, it is a way for them to kind of say, hey, we're not going to require you to build it. Let us put the burden on ourselves because we believe in our project and we're going to build it ourselves, pledging our own land and our own tax levy that you give us permissions to do.
What is, and Nicole left, but what is Nicole's heartburn over PIDs? Does it just cause their office a lot more work?
You know, prior to this, PIDs, especially if there's not a policy in place, because here's the risk with PIDs to the county. It's not necessarily the ones that you would say, great, this is a great project, potentially huge tax base, you know, everything we want in the county, help with the public infrastructure, a real partner. It's the ones that you really don't want to incentivize. And so those are the ones where it may be too small. It's like, hey, you're doing this project that the county really doesn't want to be a part of, right? We really don't want our hands kind of in this or whatever that may be. So Nicole's, I think, angst, and I can't speak for Nicole, but I think everyone's angst is we just want a policy in place to be able to approve good PIDs and one that protects the county when we say no to bad PIDs.
This policy will help.
Exactly. Then that way the county can't say we're picking favorites, we're picking, you know, whomever we like type situation. It says, no, we've got a policy, we have a review process, and through that process we can say this project qualifies, whether it's due to its size, its impacts, its regional help and infrastructure, or it doesn't qualify due to those same criteria, not being able to check the boxes. So it really does help the county kind of have that dividing factor to say yes and no and be able to rest its hat so somebody can't come after the county and say favoritism. So
could you speak to the collection and distribution of the funds? That's in Nicole's world.
Yeah, and so this is probably one I would imagine that's frustrating to Nicole because it does put more burden onto her group, because what it does is it creates a special local district over a tax over a certain area, whatever's been the petition that they're able to pledge. One thing I want to clarify is that if you cannot be brought into a PID, so your residents shouldn't have concern. If they're not in a PID now, they would have to consent to be brought into one and have higher taxes. So no one's going to be brought in against their will. Again, it's usually just the developer's land that they already own outright. But Nicole's, and it's an issue across the state. That the issue really is that, you know, this creates an additional burden onto the collections, because potentially here in Iron County, you may only get 10 PIDs, you know, depending on how fast development goes. But in other parts of the state, like down in Washington County and other areas, they're getting like 50, like close, like almost triple digits probably in the next 5 years. And so each one of those areas, the treasurer at the county has to work to basically identify that, send out the tax bill, make sure the mill levy's set, everything else. So there is an extra burden on to Nicole's group, but I believe this policy hopefully addresses that and addresses the ongoing burden so that any burden additionally put onto the county can be paid for by the PID moving forward, right? So that, again, the county's taxpayers aren't paying for a developer's project. It's basically being isolated and self-funded.
So we can charge the PID that's applying the administrative costs.
Absolutely.
Of our staff
Yep.
handling their PID.
And there is, I believe, already a levy associated with the collections and assessments. So that's a small portion. But if the county said, you know what, we just feel like that, this PID, again, it's going to be cumbersome. Nicole's kind of shown us how many additional hours this is going to take as part of her group. Maybe an extra $1,000 to $2,000 a year as part of their annual assessment fee. I'm sure that's something that we could negotiate with the PID applicant to say, listen, your PID is going to be huge. It's going to have multiple layers, multiple phasing. It's going to be a little bit of a burden onto this treasurer here at the county level. Would you be willing to pay an additional amount each year until the PID, pays off the bonds and dissolves? And I'm sure most people would say, you know what, let's run the numbers and see if it makes sense. That's not going to put an overdue burden onto the PID. And if it doesn't, I'm sure they'd be willing to talk about it. So those are all things, again, that are within your control. You can dictate exactly what you want, and you can say, hey, either you pay us or you don't get the PID. But again, I don't think the best PIDs are done that way. I think it's coming to the table and both being willing to negotiate and say, hey, what's best for the development? What's best for Iron County? And let's find a compromise where both parties win from it. So,
Marcus, could you clarify for the commissioners, kind of explain what a tax area is, especially when it could be a PID or CRA, and then the potential for overlapping tax areas?
Yeah, so that's one thing we want to be sensitive to. And so typically how it works is a PID will identify the parcels that they want within their tax authority, right? So you'll say, great, we're going to give you 5 mils or up to 0.5% of taxing authority within the area that we designate here within your parcels. You have to show us, one, that you own these parcels, that you're the owner, you agree to taxing yourself, and now you have the authority to do that. Well, let's say the governing document says they can do up to 5 mils, so that's roughly 0.5% of additional taxing authority. Well, they may say, well, we want 2 or 3 PIDs within this large area here. And we could say, that's fine. But guess what? The total combination, whether you overlap or not, can never exceed 0.5%. So you could have one PID that's levying at 2 mils, one that's levying at 2 mils, and one that's levying at 1. And maybe they have an overlap area of 5 mils. But guess what? Regardless if you do it multiple PIDs or if you do one PID at 5, it can never exceed the max tax limit that we're setting here. And
So different PIDs that one did sewer, one did roads, and one did water, or something like that.
Well, typically how you'll see it is one will tax commercial, one may tax residential, one may tax second phase. That's a little bit, 9 to 10 years down the road. So typically they'll do it that way because they'll say, well, our commercial is paying 100% taxable value, so we're only going to tax them at 2 mils. Our residential, we're going to tax at 3 mils because they get the 45% discount on primary residential homes. And so to make that fair for the same project, we're just going to have different levies here because at the end of the day, we want, basically for them to pay the same amounts that they're contributing to. So that's one way that we've seen it. We would say that it's important to make sure that, again, the devil's in the details. We don't want to give them blank checks. We want them to prove why this is good, why they're justifying that amount of money, how is this going to benefit the county. Mm-hmm. But again, the good petitions that we've seen from PID applicants, they do that. It's the bad ones that think that this is just some free money type situation. So that's why, we would review it as a team, we'd ask these questions, we'd present it before the county. And so the process here would be, assuming that they check all the boxes within this governing document or PID policy, what they would do is they'd first come with an application and a letter of intent and petition, and they would say, here's what we're wanting to present to you. So we would come up and present and say, here's the project, here's the parcels, here's what they're requesting, just very high level. And so we would come back, we call this the letter of intent stage, and we'd say, county, what do you feel about this? What questions do you have? We've reviewed it as a team. This is our input. We feel like this makes sense because of X, Y, and Z. These are some things you would say, okay, well, as a commission, we think that this is a good project. As you're saying that you recommend moving forward, great. So if you approve the letter of intent, then they would move on to the next stage to say, now we need to put together the governing document, which really spells out all the legal nuances and technical terms. So that way, if somebody presents to you a project and the county commission is just like, we're not getting behind that project for X, Y, and Z reason, then we don't have to go through all of the stages to get it rejected type situation. You have kind of a little bit of a phasing process to say, here's my concerns, here's not my concerns, take it back to the drawing board with that group and get those resolved.
So if I could just enumerate the concerns that Nicole and I have shared generally, and we recognize that this is kind of a losing fight on our end. But when I started in the recorder's office 22 years ago, we had 10 tax areas. And every time we do like a solar, we create a new tax area because of that tax area, it's actually a unique set of taxes, just like it would be a little bit different in the Water Conservancy District or in Cedar City or in unincorporated without the Water Conservancy District. Different levies apply. And so each area that has a different list of levies that apply is a tax area. And so I don't even know how many we're up to now, but like you said, in Washington County, they're probably pushing triple digits because every time you do a CRA, community reinvestment area, I think is that the term, that creates a new tax area. So there is the administrative burden, which certainly we can work within. The software allows us to manage it. Basically, each parcel is assigned a tax area, and each area has a list of levies that gets applied to that. So when it comes to the collection, it actually is fairly straightforward, other than it really gets to be very complicated if you might be in like a community reinvestment area and two different PIDs, plus the Water Conservancy District, plus unincorporated. That's your list of levies for that particular area. And it has to be unique for every unique list of levies. So that's the administrative burden, and there's risks that we get it wrong or that the county may owe money if we don't get it right. And then the other one is more of a big picture concern, which is to say there is a potential where, and I agree with Marcus, that the developers that do it right are not looking for free money versus, do you remember when the inland port came and they said, but for this project wouldn't happen. So but for the PID, you wouldn't be able to move forward with the project. And that is, there's a challenge there. I think when you have a PUD, a planned unit development, those people have to pay for all the roads. They pay the same amount of taxes, but if their sewer line breaks, they have to pay for it because it's not part of the city. And that's kind of, that's the concern that Nicole and I start to have, is your burden gets heavier and heavier on the individual taxpayer. And I think the counter to that is, on a good project, the but-for argument really is what carries the day, because but for doing the PID, the project wouldn't be able to exist.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And one thing, too, I didn't point out that I think is important as well is, CRA was mentioned quite a bit. CRA can actually be pledged towards bonds, but the only current way of doing that without a PID right now is for the county to step in and issue those bonds and have their name on it. I don't think the county has any desire to issue tax increment bonds right now on behalf of a developer. And that was always the big issue here in Utah, that there really wasn't ever a good financing mechanism to do that, because, everybody remembers Jordanelle and kind of the nightmare that happened because of that. And so the PID, regardless of what goes into it, as John had mentioned, taxing authority and different things, at the end of the day, it could also be used as a mechanism so that the developer can issue bonds against some of their tax increment through Utah Inland Port Authority or wherever that CRA may be, in order to enhance their project's value or get the money up front versus waiting over a 20, 30-year period to collect that increment. So I think it does solve a lot of purposes. I think more so than anything, I always say about PIDs, it really is project specific. Again, we've seen really good PIDs, really good projects that make a lot of sense, and we've seen ones that we're all kind of like, this isn't necessarily something I would condone. But long story short, I think having a policy in place is important for the county. Again, it kind of gives you your first barrier of defense, allows you to have a process in place, and it's the fairest way so developers can kind of see, okay, what's the standards that the county may have if I want to explore a PID? They can go directly to your website and see what that looks like.
But in the end, is buyer beware, right? Whoever buys in that PID,
Yeah.
It's
And-
their burden.
Exactly. The business owner, the property owners, whomever it is, they buy into it knowing that they're going to be paying a higher tax rate. But I do think it's the responsibility of the county to make sure that that tax rate is, one, appropriate, and two, that the funds are being used in a good manner, right? Obviously, there's good, better, best type situation, and that's where this process comes in. Let's just make sure it's fair for everyone involved. And again, the good developers don't mind this process. They actually encourage it because it provides transparency to their end user.
This agreement will protect the end user then.
Exactly.
Is
Yep.
what you're-
It's a layer of protection. So there is just one thing I did want to see, John, if the county does decide to adopt this agreement so we can have this policy in place. It's on page 3. Let's see, under section B, I. Can you a little bit lower, John? Perfect. I was just going to say, one of the things I noticed last night, any other information as may be reasonable requested by the county, I was just going to say, let's just put a period after that and then cross out the rest. I don't think we necessarily need to
Try to
have
clarify
any
what that means.
Yeah. So
I wonder-
if you do adopt it, I would just suggest with that change.
And it looked like Reed had a comment.
Oh, please. Go
May I?
ahead. Yeah, please.
I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you,
go
but
ahead.
I just wanted to point out that the concern of creating in multiple districts is really out of your control in the cities. The cities can
Right.
each create all of these districts, and that's really what happened in Washington County with St. George City. And
We're
the
already
county
subject
is
to the one
left
Cedar City's
obligated
creating.
to it and had no say in it. And so those are things that I'm glad to hear can be built in, and that in encouragement when the cities are creating them, that they make sure that they provide for collection, because that's outside of your approval, you know. And those can be created in the incorporated areas without any review or any involvement with the county in the creation of those anyway.
Although the concern still is the same.
The concern's the same.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that isn't a reason, I don't think, to say we should or shouldn't have them.
Yeah.
They'll exist.
Right.
Regardless. And the cities can create them. And so it's just creating good tools, which I think this is
And to your-
a good step to help do that.
To your point, that's what that point of this is, because
Exactly.
consternation or not, they're here.
And I think this is a good thing to share with municipalities too, that if they
Yeah.
don't have these kind of policies, that it would be good. We ought to put this on the agenda for the coordinating council to have a similar review, just like we were talking about at the last coordinating council meeting with feeding animals. You know, a lot of the municipalities.
Will you come back up to the microphone? Sorry.
This would be good to share with the municipalities at coordinating council to say, let's all be on the same page here so that the criteria is all the same, so that they understand the county's burden in those collections.
We appreciate that.
And even though you can't force the counties to do the cities to do anything, I think if we gave them language that we crafted, as we look at this potentially first
Plagiarism is alive and well.
Yeah, just to say, hey, we can't tell you what to do, but this really is tough on the county. Particularly, I know Cedar City's approved quite a few within their area. Just to say, can you put this in your policy that there may be an additional fee based off the treasurer's time and ongoing efforts to do this? And I think that would be fair. And I don't think Cedar City would balk against that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's, this is supposed to be isolated. So the people that are receiving the benefit, people that are moving into the area, are the ones that should be paying for it. It shouldn't come off the back of the current taxpayer.
So maybe, if you wouldn't mind, we spent a lot of time in the weeds, and I wonder if we could maybe just go through some of the details that we kind of ironed out. As we met as kind of an informal group several times with David Johnson, with Nicole, with Luke, myself, with Sam, and with Marcus, to try and figure out what we might present to the commission that would be, this is a policy, so it's not a law, this isn't a legislative action. You're basically just giving a framework, much like what Reed does with like a zone change. What is the criteria, right? That way someone coming in knows what to expect.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of discussion about specifics, things that we thought would protect the county, things that would lead to good PID development. We leaned on Marcus's expertise, and we plagiarized from Ogden City and several places.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Weber County had a good policy,
County.
and we've kind of drafted it and created it to take out some of the things that were more, focused on Weber and made it Iron County's unique policy. But I think on page 4, these are some of the big highlights here, John, I think we'd want to discuss is first and foremost, we would require that or anticipate that the development have at least $10 million of infrastructure needs. Again, this isn't a tool that's typically used for small developers or small developments. It really needs to have economies of scale. So just to prevent any, somebody putting in 10 homes at the end of a cul-de-sac type situation, this isn't going to be the best tool for them. So kind of having that threshold of saying, as a county, we've decided let's make it a $10 million minimum, and that's going to usually be those larger projects. At least that's the first barrier. The next one would be we anticipate that 5 mills would be the max on what we would anticipate on primary residential homes.
And could you just clarify what a mill is?
Yeah, so a mill is 1/10 of 1%, so 0.001.
So the most any one parcel we would allow for
Primary residential is half of 1%. Correct. Yep.
So that's additional tax above what they're already being taxed.
Yep.
Regardless of how many or what kind of PIDs.
Yep. And so, and that's important too. And obviously there's flexibility. I mean, Brian Head may say, well, we're less sensitive to that because maybe we're more secondary homes anyways. But I think here in Iron County, I think 5 mills across the state is usually a good beginning thing. I mean, there may be somebody that comes and says, hey, we've got to have 6 mills, and this is the reason because we're currently building on a landfill and we have to do remediate. Like it just, but for this would not get done. Like those are things we could listen to, but I think it's good for people to know because state law, just so you're aware, allows up to 15 for any PID, which in a lot of cases would double what people are currently being taxed. So I think having that threshold around 5 mills kind of says, developer, we want to help you, but your project needs to work within this because we don't want anyone to have to walk into a situation, regardless of if they know or not, paying double the taxes of potentially the neighborhood across the
And to
street.
your point, maybe Brian Head's like, we need that, we're willing to, whatever. But this is for unincorporated Iron County only.
So that's the 2 biggest one is typically on primary residential. So that may be the situation where somebody says, well, great, I've got a development that has half of it's commercial, half of it's primary residential, so I'm going to be requesting 2 PIDs because a PID can only enact 1 levy. So they may say, I'm going to have 5 mills on my primary residential, and I'm going to have 10 mills on my commercial. And we're not as worried about the commercial because, again, we would anticipate a sophisticated investor to come in there and buy the commercial property. But I think it is important for the county to have some oversight on primary residential just to make sure that, the goal of this is to help housing. It's not to to hinder housing. So I feel like 5 mills has been appropriate in most areas we've worked in.
What about our the fee structure? I was trying to remember where we've got that.
So we don't have it on here because we referenced the fee schedule, and so we need to work with Luke to finish that. But we did that on purpose so that if we make changes to the fees, we can just do that on the fee schedule versus having to come back to the county and re-update the policy each time. So we're still working with Luke, but I think the idea was that any applicant, it would be roughly about a $3,000 fee to go through this process for each PID that they're requesting.
If we approve this in the motion, do we need to mention that the fee schedule is forthcoming?
Well, it's
I think we
into
reference it in the policy that
is in there
reference the county's fee schedule for fees associated with PID creation. And again, we just did that so that we could have that flexible because Luke may say, hey, 3,000 isn't enough. We may go through the process and everybody's like, gosh, we actually need to charge a little bit more for future applicants. So we're just going to adjust the schedule versus having to go back and readjust.
And it's been
the
a hot
policy.
minute since we've talked
That
about
wiggle room's in the language.
Yes, and it's been a minute since we've talked about fee schedule. Generally, that's something that comes before the commission separately, but that includes like what do you pay for a plat map when you go to the recorder's office? What do we charge for a copy? Those kind of things, and we can build this into it. And if we just say, minimum of $3,000, that helps it cover the administrative burden that we have. We've actually even had discussions in those early on to maybe ask the municipalities to collect that on our behalf for the administrative burden whenever they do a PID. We haven't gone any further than that, but I mean that's something that we've talked about. So having this in place might actually facilitate that discussion, or maybe at the next ICOG meeting, we could bring that up.
Well, and the nice thing is too, at the end of the day, the county does have discretion, right? Again, this is just kind of the barrier. Let's set the policy, and then as we look at potential applicants, you still have flexibility. We give you flexibility within the policy to adjust as needed. So if you said, hey, actually on this one we don't like 5 mills, we want it to be higher or lower, whatever that is, we can present that to the county, and you as the creating entity have discretion on how you want to proceed at that point. So I think this is just a good first step. I know there's some potential applicants that want to move quickly because, again, we're in an interesting environment with tariffs and interest rates and everything else. So I think the sooner that some of these developers and landowners can understand all of their options and potentially what are available from the county, then that's going to make it easier for them for their long-term capital planning. So.
Should we do a 30,000 foot run through of the policy quick, or not really?
It's up to you guys. Happy to go into as much detail as you want. Basically, what we would anticipate is that they would submit a petition and letter of intent that would have this information originally under here. I won't go through each line item, but really this letter of intent just gives you a broad overview. We would bring that to the county to start the process, review that with you to make sure you don't have any adamant no type things, because if there is, then we can just stop at that point without wasting staff's or anybody else's time. Assuming the county likes the project, they like what's being requested, they understand the mill levy, how much, so on and so forth, then we would plan to meet back again in a couple weeks with a governing document, which would spell out all the legal language. And basically at that point, if the county approved the governing document, then it would be approving the creation of the PID. The PID, once approved by the county, would file that with the Utah Lieutenant Governor's office, and they would actually submit the creation and create that new local district at that point. So our goal is to take a lot of this burden off the county and present to you what we think is a good project at that point, based off staff's recommendation, our recommendation. And once that gets presented from you to you guys, at that point, then we can really understand your feedback. There may be political things, there may be things that we just have missed, but at that point we can take that all back and go to the drawing board or make any edits. So, but yeah. Sorry, I can go in more detail.
Oh, that's great.
Whatever you all prefer.
And trying to just show it on the screen as you've been talking. So.
Sorry, there's lots of little pieces here, and it is a long application, but at the end of the day, the biggest concerns I would say as a commissioner that you want to be aware of is the mill levy you approve, how long they can tax that mill levy, and the amount of bonds they can issue, and the projects they're going to use those bonds for. And those things will all be specified within their application.
I think another good kind of broad stroke is this item number 7.
Yeah.
It talks about the formation of a PID is expected to provide a significant public benefit within the county's policy goals. And some of those, bullet points, it ought to be compliance with our master plans. It ought to be, proof of and or contribution to regional, sub-regional infrastructure. You don't want something that's not going to benefit, the area. High quality site and building design, improvements that are designed to provide infrastructure for services at the community level and at large, and they're not merely a part of a development of any particular subdivision or commercial site plan. In other words, this is, public infrastructure development. And I think that is a big deal if when someone comes before the commission and they're just not meeting the big picture, the policy facilitates the commission saying, look, you got to go back to the drawing board, or look, this really, you're helping your little area, but you're not really helping the county at large, or it doesn't meet the master plan. It doesn't meet, it doesn't cause a significant public benefit. That was one of the things that I felt strongly about this, was that it allows for the commission to say, you know what, you're not meeting the bar for us on this, or go back to the drawing board.
Well, and I think too, one thing I want to point out so you all are aware is the state, after they created the PIDs, they came back and created something called IFDs, or infrastructure financing districts, which require no approval from any creating entity. Now, they're limited on what they can do. They can't do taxing. They can only do special assessments. They tried to make it more short term, but they have been able to get around that, so they can do some long-term special assessments. I am of the opinion that IFDs are not nearly as beneficial as PIDs, that typically IFDs are a workaround where two parties could come together and find a mutual beneficial agreement that would benefit both parties. The IFD, in my opinion, is kind of just the easy way out. And the tough thing is that, you know, a lot of cities and counties are kind of shooting themselves in the foot because they're just so anti-PID that they're pushing people to do IFDs, which the IFD can only do a portion of what PIDs can do, but PIDs have more value and again, bring more value to the project and to the county or the creating entity. And so, in our opinion, we think PIDs should actually be the first option. And potentially, if it's a smaller development or something, then great, go pursue an IFD. You know, we can't stop you type situation, but we want to incentivize large projects to come and talk to the county first to see if there's value that can be shared between both parties versus just pushing them to a lesser financing mechanism. So I think this policy does that. We actually address IFDs in the latter part of the policy to try to get in front of it. Again, we can't prevent IFDs, and there's actually been IFDs done here in Iron County, which is a little, not frustrating, but it's like, well, you guys kind of missed an opportunity to come talk to the county. Now, they may have been incorporated, so maybe the city just told them to do an IFD. And
Yeah, we haven't had one in unincorporated Iron County, but we have had at least one that I know of in Cedar City.
Correct. So, and I just think this policy, it gives, again, it allows you to be more of the gatekeeper to say, okay, do you fit our PID policy? Are there any adjustments to help you fit it? Is there value that can be shared? If you're not checking any of the boxes, but you really need the financing, then great. Go do your IFD. That's what it's there for, typically smaller developments. But if this is a large development, let's make sure we're all getting the benefit from it.
So with the treasurer's office, would they be the ones to review these and see if it meets our policies, or who gets in the weeds on these?
I think
Who's
Sam?
the committee that was, you mentioned, you know, that it goes through a committee.
Right.
and we would love
who
for
is
one
that?
of you to be on the committee if you have any. But right now it's Sam. We've designated him the leader, and then myself, John, Nicole, David. I'm forgetting somebody. Chenille? No,
I don't remember.
And she's gonna beat me up because this is like the third time I've forgotten her name. She came out to lunch with us. Not the clerk, not the auditor, recorder.
Oh, Carrie.
Carrie, there
Yeah.
we go. Carrie, sorry, it's been a long Monday. But that's typically been the committee. But please, if
that sounds
any
good.
of the commissioners want to sit on it, or if you want to just attend our meetings so you can get into the weeds with us, we would love to have. I think there may be some rules about how many can attend that meeting on the commission side, but feel free to pick our brains. Or
I think that sounds like that's about the best committee. I mean, that's a very inclusive and expertise heavy committee.
That's good.
I think that's the selling point of the policy.
Yeah.
Is that review committee for me.
And if anybody else from the county's interested in being on it, I don't think this is a closed door committee. I think we were just kind of picking people against their will. So Reed or anybody else, if you have any desire to want to sit in and kind of go through it and get
Reed's going to have to come out of retirement to do that.
I know. So it took a long time. I sent out an invite to say who wanted to be on it, and I finally had to call Sam and be like, Sam, sorry, I drew names, and you were the lucky one. But anyways, this is a lot of information. I don't expect you guys to be PID experts overnight. I think the best way to do this is when we first get an application, which we anticipate will probably be here soon, going through the process, kind of understanding all the details, and we'll go into all of it, and it'll be a lot easier once you see an actual application and what they're requesting. So, but is there any questions for us or for me?
No.
I guess in our motion, we just need to remember to strike out the on page 3I, right? The language after. Do we need to make that in our?
Yeah, if you just want to say adopt the policy with the suggested changes, that would probably suffice.
And I would also, you've got Commissioner Blake as the chair.
Okay.
We've been working on it long enough that now Commissioner Cousins is the chair.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Well, yes, all suggested changes.
All suggested changes. All right. I'm going to move for approval of a policy to establish application requirements review criteria and an approval process when creating a public infrastructure district or PID, with all of the suggested changes as described.
Second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you,
Marcus.
guys.
Hey, Marcus, real quick.
Yes, sir.
You talked, and I forgot to ask Royce this question, but you talked a little bit about the fire districts that could be created.
Mm-hmm.
So where the commissioners appoint the members of the board for the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District, would it be similar setup? How do other counties do it? Would we appoint that board? Would it be done
I've
other
seen
ways?
both. I've seen both. I've seen some created through elected boards. South Summit Fire. I've seen like Mountain Green Fire Protection District. I believe is an appointed position by the county.
It could be appointed or elected. Either.
Correct. I think it's just the design or the way that you create that special service district. And I think both have their pros and cons, right? If it's typical where you're the one appointing, then I think actually one of the big things, at least on my side, if it's an appointed district versus a voted district, if they ever issue any bonds, they actually have to come to the county and seek permission from the county first, and then they can issue debt. Whereas an elected board would not have to do that. They're more independent.
Well, and
we used to call it like a local district versus a special service district, but the state came in and made everything special service districts. So now I would imagine there's probably a fire protection district and like a basic district or something like that would distinguish between the two. Sam, we might have to
kind of
look
cover
at that,
both.
but-
On the Water Conservancy District, a lot of the board members are elected in, whether they're mayors or
Correct.
councilmen or whoever, right? So it kind of covers both.
Then yeah, so if that's the case, then they probably wouldn't have to come back because it's a combination of elected officials on the board, whereas some boards are just
So we have a councilman from Enoch, one from Cedar. We have a mayor from Canaryville. So we kind of got both.
Yeah. You got to keep Paul Monroe under wraps. Paul's a great guy.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate
Absolutely. Let us know if you have any questions, and I'm sure we'll be here probably soon with your first LOI to take a look at. So again, if any commissioners have any interest in being a part of the process, just let us know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to number 7, Jennifer, with personnel.
Hello. All right.
Meetings.
In the attorney's office, Elizabeth Hinson was selected from the most recent competitive interview and selection process to fill the new part-time assistant position effective 3/17/2025. In the Sheriff's Office Corrections, Emily Campbell has completed all tasks to receive a promotion from a full-time Corrections Deputy 2 to a full-time Corrections Deputy 3 beginning 3/16/2025. And then in the Road Department, Paul Rodriguez Pacheco was selected from the most recent competitive interview and selection process to backfill the vacant full-time Maintenance Technician 1 position effective 2/18/2025.
Okay. Any discussion on those?
Nope.
No.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the personnel changes in the county.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Jennifer, here is that. I sent you a picture of this.
Yeah, that'd be
better if you'd like that. It looked no. It looked interesting though. To save on. And then John, I also grabbed another brochure while I was at that conference about public procurement for purchasing.
Yeah.
That looked interesting. So maybe take a look at that. It kind of does a economy of scale with the counties and purchasing power. Maybe something.
Well, it's not a bad thing. We do something similarly now with like state contract, and so we might.
Right.
I know there's value. I know that for Scripps we used to have a little program that Dave Yardley used to do, that was kind of a savings program, and I'm curious if that's similar.
Looks that way.
So yeah.
Does that look like it's worth looking at, Jennifer?
Absolutely, and I'll run it through our brokers too.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll
They
follow
talked
up
about
on
it
this.
at the conference a little bit. I don't know what you thought, Mike, but it sounded interesting.
It did. I mean, it did sound.
Yeah, worth looking into for sure.
That was something beneficial from that particular meeting.
How about county boards? Or
I'm caught up.
think we're good there.
My
Any-
world.
any closed session stuff. We got none of that today. All right. Appreciate everybody's attendance and participation in the meeting. We'll declare this meeting